everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone SE second generation has been out for about 2 years at this point. Apple released it in 2022 as an alternative to their more expensive options, but still giving you pretty reasonable specs that are up to date. And so I wanted to help you decide if you should still pick one up, since we may have an iPhone SE 3 in the future here, not too long from now, or if maybe you should wait or maybe you can get this very reasonable. So either way, I wanted to help you decide if you should pick it up in 2022, as many of you have asked me to do this video. Now, currently, this is the least expensive iPhone that Apple offers new. You, of course, can get used phones or refurbished phones, but this comes in at $399 or goes up to $449 with the options of 64 and 128 gigabytes. This is the 128 gigabyte model, and that usually helps if maybe you want to record a lot of video, things like that. So if we go into the storage, you'll see we have 128 gigabytes there. It gets the recent updates and things like that, but I wanted to talk about durability and more in just a moment. Now, of course, we have 3 different options as far as colors. This is the product red version, but you also have a black and white version. So very simple, more reminiscent of what we had before when Apple used to release phones with the iPhone 4 and Steve Jobs was around, where we just had 2 color options, or maybe a third later in the year with product red. So it's sort of a throwback to that. As far as its durability, well, it holds up pretty well, similar to what we would have with previous phones, the iPhone 6 through the iPhone 8, where we have an aluminum frame around the outside edge that holds up well. It's anodized, but doesn't seem to chip or anything like that. Of course, you have your SIM card tray and your typical buttons, and it holds up very, very well. This one has not been in a case, and the glass has actually been quite durable also. It's not as durable as the most recent ceramic shield, but it holds up well, about as well as maybe an iPhone 8 would. So no scratches here on the back. I don't really have any scratches on the front. And of course, we have Touch ID. So Touch ID is something that a lot of people still appreciate, especially if you're wearing a mask today or things like that. And if you want a Touch ID phone, this is your only option with the most recent processors in it. So it works nice and fast usually. So we'll do that one more time. I typically prefer Touch ID. I just wish maybe they'd put it on the power button. However, this particular model works really, really well. And again, if you want sort of a retro look with the latest specs, this is your only option. Now, as far as the display is concerned, it has great viewing angles. It's a 4.7-inch Retina HD display, according to Apple. It has a 1334 by 750 pixel resolution at 326 pixels per inch. So basically what we've had for years from the iPhone 6, iPhone 7, 8, and now this. So pretty good resolution. You can't see the pixels or anything. And like I said, good viewing angles. You can also watch HD content on it, 4K HDR content as well. And then it goes up to 625 nits of brightness. So it's nice and bright, no issues there. And if we go to something like YouTube, I have an HDR video that I recorded about the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Let me turn it down here first. We'll hit play, and I don't want to transfer that to a HomePod. If we go to our settings here, you'll see we actually have 4K HDR. Now, of course, this display is not a 4K display, so what it will do is just downscale that. But it's bright enough to watch HDR content, although it's not going to give you the 1200 nits of brightness of the latest phones. So just keep that in mind. Now, one thing this doesn't have that may also be a consideration for you is PWM, or pulse width modulation, as a way to control the display's brightness. This seems to be one of the most popular reasons people go with the LCD displays of the iPhone SE or maybe an iPhone XR or iPhone 11. Because they're not flickering the display to control brightness, they're usually a lot easier on the eyes. So with an OLED display such as that in the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it will flicker the display faster and slower to control brightness. You can't see this, but you can see it under slow motion video at 120 frames or 240 frames per second. So you can see that, and it can cause you to feel nauseated or just sort of dizzy or just not well. So some people that affects, about 1 in 10, myself included. It's not so much on the latest phones, but definitely on the iPhone XS, XS Max, iPhone 10, it was a problem. This is much better on the eyes. As far as the speakers, we have one at the top and one at the bottom, basically what they've done for a very long time, and they sound pretty good. They're nice and loud, and I wanted to show you what they sound like now, or let you hear them and show you how loud they are using my Apple Watch, using the noise option. So if you go into noise, you can measure the ambient noise around you and how many decibels it is. So give me just a second. We'll tilt the microphone toward it, and you can hear what it sounds like. Now, the speakers are pretty good. They get a little bit muffled at the highest volume, and they're not as loud as the latest phones that go up to over 80 decibels. But they're plenty loud, and if you just bring the volume down a little bit, it clears the sound right up. So pretty good speakers, what you would expect in this size device. Now, the battery life is probably its biggest downfall. It has the same battery capacity as the iPhone 8 at 1,821 milliamp hours. That gives it about 4 hours of screen on time, depending on how you're using your phone. If you're just using it on 3G, as far as talking, you'll get about 10 hours, or up to maybe 13 hours just using Safari. But if you're doing anything else intensive, whether that be playing games or anything else, you're going to use that up more quickly and maybe get about 8 to 9 hours of viewing video and things like that. It just depends on how you're using it, but between 4 to 5 hours of screen on time, and if you're not a heavy user, it will last you through the day. If you are, you'll probably have to charge it a couple times or at least once to get you through the day. Now, it does have wireless charging, but it also has fast charging if you're using a 20-watt adapter. So you can get 50% in about 30 minutes, according to Apple, and that holds to be true when you're actually trying it in real life. So it does charge pretty quickly if you're needing to bump that battery back up. Like I said before, it has more recent specs internally. It has an A13 Bionic with 3 gigabytes of RAM. You can see how much RAM it has going into Geekbench, and it's a pretty fast phone. Because it's not pushing a lot of pixels, it's just super fast. Of course, it doesn't have ProMotion, but it will load games fast, and RAM management's quite good. Going back and forth, testing YouTube and things, it's staying open in the background. If you want to load a game, a more recent game, I typically use Minecraft a lot as an example. We'll just let it load here in real time so I can show you. It's plenty fast. So it's the first time I've opened this since rebooting. We'll just go to create and see how long it takes. So typically you're going to be able to play games on this without any problem whatsoever, whether that be Minecraft or Call of Duty or Among Us, or maybe when Fortnite comes back onto the iPhone, things like that. We'll give it just a moment here for it to load, and you'll see we're in. If I was to try this on an older phone, such as an iPhone 6, it would be much slower, or iPhone 6S. So it loads nice and fast, no real issues there. Frame rates are smooth, 60 frames per second, as you would expect. So no problems with that. The cameras in the second generation iPhone SE are very similar to that of the iPhone XR. We have a 7 megapixel forward-facing camera that does up to 1080p 30 video. So if we go into the video, you can see it here. I'll hit record, and now I'm recording with the iPhone SE, and you can hear the microphone directly from it. So instead of using my studio microphone, you're hearing the microphone from the SE and seeing the video from it, which is good enough for things like FaceTime or maybe a Zoom call or other conference calls, but I really wouldn't use it to maybe record a vlog or anything like that. However, the rear-facing camera is quite good. The rear-facing camera is a 12 megapixel camera that can record 4K 60, has optical image stabilization, and an f1.8 aperture. However, it does not have HDR. But I recorded an entire video using this when I reviewed the iPhone SE second generation when it first came out. I used an SE to record that video, so if you want to see that, I'll leave the link in the description, and you can click the little link in the upper right here. So that video shows what this is capable of. However, it takes pretty nice photos as well, but you don't get the telephoto zoom lens, so you don't have optical zoom. You do have digital zoom up to 5x, and you don't have ultra wide. So you're missing out on those features, but the camera is pretty good as well, as you can see some of the photos here. I've used these in a comparison before, but now full screen, you may be able to see it a little bit better, and it gives you an idea of what it's capable of. So it's a pretty decent camera overall. Now, as far as reception's pretty good. You don't have 5G, and that's what's speculated to be the major feature in the third generation. So this does not have 5G. It has 4G and 3G capability, LTE, but no 5G. It also has Wi-Fi, but again, you're not going to get the latest specs, but it's fine. It's a very practical phone as far as that goes. So good reception, it's decent overall, and typically the aluminum-bodied phones, for some reason, I find have better reception than the steel-bodied phones of, say, the Pro models. So for whatever reason, that's just my experience, but that seems to be the case for me. So if you don't care about 5G, well, this should work for you. As far as IP rating, it's an IP67, so it does have some water and dust resistance, 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes. Again, as I've mentioned before in other videos, if you're going to submerge this in water, I would put it in a waterproof case, as Apple will not really pay for that damage, you'll have to use Apple Care, or if you don't have Apple Care, you'll need to buy the phone again. So typically put it in a fully waterproof case if you're going to submerge it regularly, but splashes of water and things should be fine. And that leads me to, should you buy an iPhone SE second generation? And I would say this is a consideration for maybe 2 or 3 reasons. One being you want Touch ID and you want the latest processor, and the other being that it's LCD. So LCD, not bothering your eyes, not having PWM, may be the best option. And of course, there's the price availability as well. You probably can get this very inexpensively, whether that be refurbished from someone else used or just through your carrier. Now, if you want to wait for the more recent one, iPhone SE 3, if you care about 5G and whatever else, new chip they put inside it, things like that, any enhancements to the camera, then you may want to wait for the new 5G version of the iPhone SE that's said to be launching within a month or so, or within March or April, it may be a new Apple event. So that's a consideration. However, there was one other consideration that I would consider, and that's the iPhone 8 Plus. If you want a larger phone with Touch ID, the optical zoom, as well as a camera that's quite good, the iPhone 8 Plus is still a good option if you want that, as well as better battery life. So you probably can get these for around a similar price. Maybe you can even get the 8 Plus for less money, or even an iPhone 8. So it just depends what matters most to you. But the iPhone 8 Plus is actually one of my favorite phones ever made, and I really miss Touch ID from it. So if you want that larger screen, you even have a higher pixel density here on the 8 Plus, so it may be a better option that way. Of course, iOS updates will be available for many years to come, since this has only been out 2 years. So you have probably until at least iOS 19, iOS 20, depending on how Apple decides to continue the iOS rollouts and how long they support their devices. Either way, it's going to have the latest security updates and the latest features for a long time as far as what it has now, but it's not going to have ProMotion ever, like the iPhone 13 Pro Max, as that requires a different display and some different features and processors. But either way, it will have iOS updates for many, many years. And I definitely would consider this if it was only a couple $100. However, again, if you want the latest features, you may want to wait till that new one, the 3rd generation, comes out. It's said to be the exact same, but we'll have to wait and see. Let me know if you have an iPhone SE second generation, or maybe you're considering picking one up. I'd love to hear where you're getting it from, maybe the price you're paying for it, since they seem to be pretty reasonably priced, and what kind of battery life you're experiencing using it. Are you a heavy user, or maybe you're just a casual user and it gets you through 2 days because you don't use it that often? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, if you want to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.